Welcome to this deep dive. We're really glad you're here with us today.
Absolutely.
I want you to just picture the scene for a second. It's the dawn of the 2026 Formula One season.
Right.
We're in Melbourne, Australia at the iconic Albert Park circuit. And the energy around the track is just electric.
Because this weekend was supposed to be a pristine, highly anticipated showcase of these cutting-edge new regulations.
Exactly. A completely new era for the sport designed to make racing closer, more efficient, and, more competitive.
But that is not quite what happened.
No, not at all. Instead, it devolved into a weekend of unpredictable chaos, driver revolts, fierce off-track drama.
And honestly, some of the most intense edge-of-your-seat racing we've seen in years.
Yeah, it was wild. So today we are pulling from a comprehensive breakdown and a really detailed transcript covering the chaotic aftermath of this 2026 Australian Grand Prix.
And our mission for this deep dive is to cut right through all that noise.
We're going to give you a clear, thorough understanding of exactly what went down on that track, from the surprise podium finishes to the bitter, unfiltered complaints from the drivers.
And most importantly, we're going to explore why this matters to you, even if you have literally never watched a single lap of a motor race in your life.
Right, because today's deep dive is not just about race results or championship points or who sprayed the champagne on Sunday.
No, this entire weekend serves as a spectacular case study in what happens when massive, sweeping regulatory overhauls collide head-on with human performance.
It's that classic scenario where theoretical engineering and governing body mandates meet the very messy, highly unpredictable reality of human operators.
Operators who are trying to function under extreme physical and mental stress, I might add.
So let's start unpacking this with the biggest on-track story of the weekend, which was the triumphant return of Mercedes.
The Silver Arrows.
Historically known as the Silver Arrows, because of their iconic silver paint jobs. They came out of the gate and secured a completely dominant 1-2 finish.
Which nobody was quite expecting to be that definitive.
Right. You have George Russell taking first place, or P1 as they call it in the paddock. And right behind him, his rookie teammate, Kimi Antonelli, grabbing second place.
In his very first Formula One race.
Which is just an incredible storyline on its own.
It really is.
But if you look closely at the post-race transcripts, this wasn't some easy Sunday afternoon cruise for Mercedes.
Not at all.
Russell gave this incredibly candid post-race quote that puts you right there in the cockpit with him. He said, I got on the grid, I saw my battery level, I had nothing in the tank, made a bad start.
But he went on to note that despite all of those massive red flags right at lights out, the win felt very sweet.
Yeah, and it provides this remarkable insight into the immediate panic and problem solving these drivers face before the race even begins.
Because these 2026 cars rely heavily on complex hybrid systems.
Right.
So to be sitting on the grid of the first race of a brand new regulatory era, looking down at your dash and realizing your electrical battery is entirely depleted.
That is a total nightmare scenario for energy management.
Exactly. A driver relies on that battery deployment to defend against the cars behind them on the opening lap.
Yet Russell still managed to process that massive deficit, adapt his driving style on the fly, and convert his starting position into a victory.
Holding off the rest of the field.
What about Kimi Antonelli's perspective, though? I mean, for a rookie to step into these newly designed cars and take second place is staggering.
It is. And Antonelli noted that despite the sheer challenge of the new machinery, it was, quote, fun from within the cockpit.
Fun.
Yeah, that specific comment about having fun is actually the outlier of the weekend.
Which points to a really successful winter development program for Mercedes, right?
Absolutely. They managed to build a car that, while challenging, still gives the driver enough predictability and confidence to actually push the limits.
The engineering team managed to translate the theoretical data from their simulators into a physical car that a human being could comfortably operate.
And as we'll see with the rest of the grid, that was a remarkably rare achievement in Melbourne.
Yeah, we see a stark contrast when we look over at their rivals Ferrari. It was a real mixed bag for the Italian team.
It definitely was.
Charles Leclerc secured third place after this thrilling race-long battle with Russell, and Lewis Hamilton, who is now driving in Ferrari Red.
Which still takes some getting used to.
It really does, right?
Yeah.
He finished fourth, and Hamilton actually praised Ferrari's raw pace off the line.
Yeah, he specifically called their starts ridiculous.
Meaning they were incredibly fast, capitalizing on lightning-quick reactions when the red lights went out. So the car clearly has the raw speed.
The speed is there, but once again we see a recurring theme for Ferrari. This brings up the constant battle between operational excellence and engineering excellence.
No, because you can have a car with blistering raw pace,
Yeah.
but if it's hampered by weak strategy,
That pace is entirely neutralized.
yeah, if you listen to the team radio during that race, there is a remarkably tense moment from Lewis Hamilton. He missed a crucial pit stop call because of poor communication from the pit wall.
And he was openly questioning the team's decision-making in real time while wrestling the car around the track.
He reportedly felt that this specific strategic blunder cost him a guaranteed spot on the podium.
Which begs the question, right? If a team spends tens of millions of dollars developing a car that has a ridiculous start, how does a simple missed radio call completely undo all of that engineering work?
It just demonstrates how poor real-time decision-making and fragmented communication will completely undermine your success regardless of your resources.
Strategy is essentially the invisible aerodynamic package of a race car.
That's a great way to put it.
You have an elite talent in Hamilton and elite machinery that can fight at the front. But if your pit wall cannot process incoming data like tire degradation or weather changes,
And execute clear decisions efficiently under pressure.
the millions spent on raw pace will not yield trophies. Ferrari's 2026 challenge won't just be about making the car faster, it'll be entirely about whether they can fix their operational execution and human communication.
Okay, so as much as we can analyze Mercedes' dominance or Ferrari's strategy, the absolute loudest, most explosive element of the weekend was the intense, almost universal backlash against these brand new 2026 cars.
Oh yeah, the drivers were not holding back.
The regulations completely changed the design philosophy to create low downforce machines. And for anyone unfamiliar, downforce is that aerodynamic pressure created by the wings and the bodywork, right?
Yeah, it physically pushes the car down into the track, giving the tires massive grip. It operates exactly like an upside-down airplane wing.
So by heavily reducing that downforce for 2026 to improve straight-line efficiency, the cars have drastically less grip.
And the drivers are actively pushing back against it.
Let me read you this quote from Lando Norris, who managed to fight his way to a fifth-place finish. He stated, quote, "We've come from the best cars ever made in Formula One and the nicest to drive to probably the worst. It sucks, but you have to live with it."
He went as far as calling the driving experience painful.
Probably the worst is a damning indictment from a top-tier driver.
It is. Because when you strip away that aerodynamic grip, the cars are no longer firmly planted to the tarmac. They become twitchy, unpredictable, and entirely unforgiving of even the smallest driver error.
Max Verstappen's weekend is the perfect illustration of this, right?
Oh, absolutely. He had a brutal qualifying session started all the way back in 20th place due to power unit issues.
And then put in this gritty, heroic recovery drive to finish 6th.
But his off-track comments are the real story here.
Yeah, he called the cars out for being far too difficult to drive. He stated, "I love racing, but you can only take so much."
And then he dropped a massive bombshell.
He threatened to quit the sport entirely by 2028 if the FIA doesn't take action to change these cars.
When a reigning multi-time world champion threatens to walk away from the sport because he fundamentally despises the machinery he's forced to operate,
You have a systemic crisis on your hands.
you really do. I mean, how physically and mentally taxing is it to drive a car that you are actively fighting against for 2 hours straight?
Well, the drivers describe it as operating on a knife edge.
Because the cars are sliding around so much more, the drivers are constantly making micro corrections to the steering wheel just to keep the car facing forward.
And to operate at 200 miles per hour on a knife edge for 2 straight hours requires a level of focus and physical exertion that crosses the line from a fun challenge into something unreasonable.
And potentially dangerous. The spreadsheet said these cars would be highly efficient, but the human beings inside the cockpit are enduring a miserable, physically punishing experience.
But we are seeing a fascinating divide in how this new style of racing is being received. On one side, you have multiple drivers calling the cars dangerous, sketchy, and saying the race felt like a demolition derby.
Because the cars are so hard to control.
But on the other side, some fans, and even a few of the drivers themselves, are looking at the product on the track and saying this is exactly what the sport needed.
They argued that seeing these intense, unpredictable battles, the cars sliding around, and the sheer difficulty of keeping the car out of the wall,
That is what makes it a spectacle.
it highlights that classic tension between the operator's safety and the consumer's entertainment.
Right, the drivers are the ones absorbing the physical risk and enduring the G-forces, so their calls for drivability and safety are entirely valid.
But the fans who pay to watch the pinnacle of motorsport want to see the drivers actually wrestling with the cars.
They want to see the human effort, They don't want it to look easy or automated.
A perfect example of that was Franco Colapinto's unbelievable car control during free practice 2.
Oh man, he had a massive snap of oversteer.
Yeah.
Which is basically when the rear tires suddenly lose their grip and the back of the car aggressively slides out.
Just like driving on a patch of black ice.
And he somehow managed to catch the slide and keep the car from smashing into the concrete pit wall.
It was a breathtaking display of reflex and raw skill.
For a fan watching on television, that is incredible entertainment. But for the drivers, it's terrifying proof of how unstable these machines actually are.
And that twitchiness and instability wasn't just contained to the on-track action.
Note, the sheer amount of chaos that happened before the lights even went out on Sunday is staggering.
The entire weekend felt burdened by massive off-track mayhem, starting with severe travel nightmares for the teams and the fans.
The travel logistics alone were a nightmare. Because of sweeping airline issues, getting personnel to Australia became a massive hurdle.
Ferrari actually had to charter private flights just to dodge geopolitical airspace complications and ensure their mechanics and engineers arrived on time.
So before a single engine is turned on, you have hundreds of team members arriving exhausted, jet-lagged, and highly stressed.
And that fatigue clearly bled onto the track. We saw an unprecedented number of grid casualties.
Having multiple cars crash or fail before the race officially begins is incredibly rare.
Especially for a season opener where the cars are supposed to be pristine.
Just look at local Aussie hero Oscar Piastri. The fans at Albert Park were completely hyped to see him race in his home country.
And incredibly, he crashes on the formation phase.
For those who might not know, the formation phase is just that slow, carefully managed warm-up lap the cars take right before lining up on the grid.
He lost control and bended into the wall while driving at a fraction of racing speed.
It was an absolute heartbreak, ending his home race before the green flag even dropped.
Aston Martin was dealing with similar chaos, with both Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll involved in separate pre-race incidents.
And then you have Red Bull Jr. Isaac Hadjar, who pulls off a miracle to qualify in third place.
Only to painfully fade down the order during the race as his car simply couldn't maintain the pace.
All of this chaos points back to the central theme of systemic instability. And that instability extended all the way up to the governing body, the FIA.
Who found themselves under immense fire.
They were in a regulatory scramble trying to manage this newly introduced rule set in real time.
A prime example of this occurred after Friday practice. The FIA had to make a sudden, late-notice change to the track configuration.
They completely removed the fourth straight mode, or SM zone, located between turns 8 and 9.
Right. And a straight mode zone is essentially a designated area on the track where the car's aerodynamics and hybrid systems are temporarily configured for pure straight-line speed,
reducing drag to help with overtaking. But the drivers banded together after Friday practice and deemed that specific zone fundamentally unsafe.
Because the cars were too unstable to handle the speeds required in that section.
But think about what that means. If the teams spend tens of millions of dollars over the winter simulating these exact track layouts, what actually happens in the garage when the FIA deletes a vital zone on a Friday night?
It creates a massive, expensive ripple effect that ruins months of preparation.
Because in modern motorsport, teams lock in incredibly complex, highly specific mathematical setups based on the exact configuration of the track.
They've tuned the aerodynamics, the energy deployment strategies, and critically the ride height.
Which is exactly how many millimeters the floor of the car sits above the asphalt.
Everything is calculated around those specific straight mode zones. So when the FIA reversed the rule and removed that zone mid-weekend, it threw all of that meticulous preparation out the window.
The team's optimized simulated setups were suddenly obsolete.
And the mechanics had to manually recalculate and rebuild the car's configurations overnight.
It is a perfect example of the friction that occurs when a governing body is essentially beta testing new regulations during a live World Championship event.
And that friction and confusion spilled over into the race start itself. There was a huge controversy surrounding George Russell right as the lights went out.
Yeah, fans watching the broadcast noticed that Russell's Mercedes appeared to inch forward before the 5 red lights officially turned off.
Historically, any movement before the lights go out is a slam dunk false start penalty.
But the stewards cleared him. The explanation given was that he wasn't clearly moving out of position.
According to the exact newly written letter of the rules for 2026, he avoided punishment.
But that sparked a massive debate online and among commentators about how these new rules are being enforced.
It added to the overarching feeling that nobody, not the drivers, not the engineers, and maybe not even the rule makers themselves, fully has a grip on the 2026 regulations yet.
Which brings us to the most critical part of our discussion today. The implications of this entire weekend extend far beyond the confines of a racetrack.
They really do.
I want to speak directly to you, the listener, right now. You might be listening to this on your commute or while walking the dog or prepping for a meeting and thinking, okay, this is a wild story about fast cars and angry drivers.
But why should I care about the aerodynamic setup of a 2026 Formula One car?
Exactly. I don't drive one and I don't manage a race team.
You should care because this race is a flawless, high-stakes microcosm of systemic change.
And systemic change is something every single one of us deals with in our daily lives.
Think about what happened in Melbourne. A governing body completely rewrote the rules from scratch to enforce new standards.
They wanted more efficiency, closer competition, and a modernized product.
In theory, on a blueprint and in a computer simulation, the new system was beautifully optimized.
But when that new system was rolled out into the messy, unpredictable, real world, it created massive friction.
Because the theoretical designs crafted by the architects clashed violently with the practical reality of the human operators.
The humans, in this case the drivers, were handed a system that looked perfect on paper, but was described as painful, unsafe, and the worst to actually execute.
I want you to think about times in your own life or your own industry where this exact dynamic has played out.
Have you ever been handed a new, optimized software system by corporate management that was supposed to make your job faster, but actually made your day-to-day execution incredibly difficult?
Have you ever had to navigate a top-down restructuring that looked great on a PowerPoint slide, but completely ignored the ground-level realities of the people doing the actual work?
Everyone has experienced that mandate from upper management that is designed to increase efficiency, but actually just makes doing your job 10 times harder.
That is exactly what the 2026 Formula One regulations represent. It is the friction between the architects of a system and the users of a system.
When you change an environment, fundamentally, the operators have to resort to extreme measures just to survive the transition.
We saw that with Max Verstappen threatening to quit his profession, or Oscar Piastri losing control of his car before he even reached the starting line.
Or Lewis Hamilton's pit wall completely freezing under the pressure of a new strategic landscape.
It's a potent reminder that you cannot design a system solely for theoretical efficiency. You must design it for the human beings who have to operate within it.
If the system requires human beings to operate on a mental and physical knife edge constantly, the system is flawed.
It really brings this whole chaotic weekend into focus.
It does. To quickly recap what an unbelievable start to the 2026 season this was, we saw Mercedes pull off a surprise dominant 1-2 finish, proving they somehow cracked the code on these new regulations.
We watched Ferrari prove they have blistering raw pace, but once again fall victim to their own operational woes and poor communication.
We saw Red Bull scrambling to limit the damage from power unit issues.
And above all, we witnessed a grid completely divided over the safety, the feel, and the future of these incredibly difficult new low-downforce cars.
It was a weekend of pure adrenaline, pure frustration, and a massive learning curve for everyone involved.
As we wrap up this analysis, I want to leave you with a final lingering question to mull over.
Let's hear it.
We have seen the drivers push to their absolute limits this weekend, physically wrestling with machines that they openly despise to the point of exhaustion. So consider this.
Yeah, okay.
If the absolute pinnacle of motorsport engineering has now created machines so mathematically complex, so twitchy, and so difficult to manage that the best drivers in the entire world are threatening to walk away from the sport.
Wow.
At what point does our relentless pursuit of technical innovation completely outpace human capability? Are we building machines and systems for a better future, or are we simply building machines that humans are no longer physically or mentally equipped to handle?
That is definitely something to chew on, whether you were looking at a race car or the latest software update on your phone. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. We love taking these complex stacks of information and finding the real human stories buried inside them.
We invite you to keep questioning the world around you and keep looking for the friction between the systems and the people.
And we will catch you next time.
Well, you heard, people. I mean, it's crazy. We do not know what is going to happen this year, because it seems Mercedes is going to run away with the championship if things don't change. But let us see what happens in 3 months' time. In 7 races, there will be a test that is scheduled. And let's hope by then Mercedes will create a power unit that is equivalent to the rest of the grid. If not, let's just wait and see. It's gonna be crazy because it's not looking very well. F1 2026 may be boring with another team dominating like the other years. Once a team starts strong, it just dominates. Let's hope it's not the case. Alright, thank you. Like, subscribe, and thumbs up. Let's go.